The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. Let's get real for a moment. Imagine waking up one day and not recognizing the person in the mirror. Not because your face has changed, but because you've let too many lines be crossed, too many small poisons slip by, too many boundaries trampled in the name of keeping the peace. You didn't get here overnight. It happened in the everyday moments, in the jokes that cut a little too deep, in the advice that sounded like concern but felt like control, in the silence you swallowed so someone else could feel comfortable. You're here because something inside you knows this isn't right. Jung warned us, what you don't confront stays inside, and what stays inside rots you from within. Let's talk about the behaviors Jung said you must never tolerate. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because these are termites. They eat away at your self-worth, your clarity, your peace. They disguise themselves as love, as friendship, as loyalty, but they are poison, slow, and silent. First, there's emotional manipulation. It doesn't arrive with a shout. It comes as a whisper. I'm saying this for your own good. If you really loved me, you'd do this. Why does this bother you so much? You start to doubt. First, the situation, then your own perception. In the end, you doubt yourself. The master manipulator doesn't need to raise their voice. They just need you to start questioning your own mind. This isn't love. This isn't friendship. It's control in disguise. And the worst part? It often comes from people you love. That makes it more poisonous, because you confuse loyalty with resignation. Jung said it bluntly, people will do anything, however absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And what better way to avoid it than by shaping yours? Emotional manipulation feeds on your silence, on your misunderstood upbringing, on your fear of losing someone. But what you're really losing is yourself. When they know you won't respond, when your resistance is weak, they cross another line. Not content with molding your mind, they seek to distort your image in front of others. And they do it through laughter humiliation, disguised as humor. A joke at your expense. A comment that cuts, but they smile and say, I'm just kidding. If you let this pass, they move to something sneakier. They try to make you doubt what's real. Here comes gaslighting. Someone denies what happened. They say, you're making it up. It wasn't like that. You always make a drama. You start to wonder if you're wrong about what you saw or felt. This confusion traps you in their version of the truth. Gaslighting is a silent war. No screams, no blows, just a dense fog that settles inside you until you no longer know if the problem is you or everything you're allowing. Jung called this internal betrayal. The moment you start to distrust yourself, you become a prisoner of someone else's mind. And when they've installed that confusion, they do something colder. They use your vulnerability against you. Systematic emotional invalidation. You tell them something hurts and they discard it. You explain how you feel and they ridicule it. You're always on about the same thing. It's not that big a deal. You're just complicating things. Every time someone invalidates your inner world, what they're really saying is that your emotions are inconvenient, annoying, exaggerated, that you should feel less, be quieter, so you learn to swallow everything, to not express, to not bother. You become a muted version of yourself, someone who lives so others won't feel uncomfortable. Jung said when we repress our emotions, they don't disappear, they rot. They turn into anxiety, insomnia, uncontrolled anger, or nameless sadness. They don't vanish, they transform and pull you further from who you once were. But it doesn't end there, because once you've been manipulated, humiliated, gaslit, and invalidated, they push further. Silent contempt, ignoring you on purpose, not talking or looking at you. This silence isn't normal, it's a way to punish you. It makes you feel invisible, like you don't matter. Contempt hurts because it attacks your need to be seen. It can break you if you let it go on. Jung warned, what you accept changes you. Letting this happen pulls you away from yourself. If you take all this without fighting back, you're not the same. You stop trusting, you stop speaking up. But there's more. The normalization of sacrifice as a virtue. You're taught that giving up your needs is kind, that putting others first is love. But it's not. It's the habit of erasing yourself. Jung said, losing yourself like this breaks you apart. You can't live fully if you're always last. People praise you for being nice, but nobody asks about you. And finally, acceptance of contempt as the price for belonging. After so much manipulation, humiliation, confusion, invalidation, silence, and self-abandonment, you decide that belonging at any cost is better than being alone with your truth. You accept crumbs, you tolerate systematic rejection, you justify the unjustifiable. The most tragic part? You convince yourself that you are the problem, that you deserve this treatment, that you can't aspire to more. Jung called this a psychic death. The moment when the person no longer struggles, no longer asks, no longer feels. They just survive. They adapt to mistreatment because they believe there's nothing outside of that. That contempt is the cost of not being alone. But it's not. Nothing is worth betraying yourself every day. So what do you do now? First, stop justifying the unacceptable. Don't explain away the poison. Don't make excuses for those who cross your boundaries. Your peace is not a negotiation. Second, start affirming your worth. Speak up, even if your voice shakes. Write down what you will and will not accept. Let your boundaries be clear, not just to others, but to yourself. Third, choose your peace over your fear. It's not about becoming a judge or a victim. It's about reclaiming your place in your own life. It's about integration, bringing your shadow into the light, owning your pain, and refusing to let it define you. Write this down. I choose my peace over fear. If this spoke to you, if you felt seen in these words, stay with me. This is just the beginning of your healing. Subscribe, follow, whatever it takes. Let's walk this path together. You're not alone. You never were. Let's talk about something you might not even realize you're carrying. The invisible weight of always feeling not enough. Have you noticed how some relationships, especially the ones that matter most, quietly chip away at your sense of self? Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But what happens when every day someone makes you feel like you're not allowed to be that person? Maybe it's a partner who only loves the version of you that bends, shrinks, or stays silent. Maybe it's a friend who turns your dreams into punchlines, or a family member who questions every choice you make. It starts so subtly. A sigh when you speak your mind, a look that says, here we go again, a comment. Why can't you just be more like... You tell yourself it's not a big deal, but each time, a little part of you goes quiet. Jung warned us, never tolerate what erodes your core, because the moment you start to shrink for someone else's comfort, you begin to disappear from your own life. Why do we let this happen? Sometimes it's the hope that if we just try harder, love more, give more, things will change. Sometimes it's the fear of being alone, of facing the silence that comes when you finally say, enough. But Jung taught that true growth only happens when you face your shadow, the parts of yourself you're afraid to see, the wounds you keep hidden, the needs you keep denying. Have you ever stayed in a relationship where you felt like you had to earn love, prove your worth, or apologize for simply existing? That's not love. That's emotional dependency. It's the belief that your value comes from someone else's approval. But here's the truth. You are not here to be completed by another person. You are here to share your life with someone who honors your wholeness. If someone makes you feel like you must change who you are to be loved, that is not a relationship. That's a transaction. And Jung said, never tolerate a transaction where your soul is the currency. Ask yourself, why am I drawn to dynamics that leave me feeling small? What part of me believes I have to earn my place? What wound am I still trying to heal through someone else's approval? This is the origin of the struggle, the childhood voice that learned love was conditional, that being yourself was risky. But you are not that child anymore. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say, this doesn't work for me. You have the right to walk away from anything that asks you to betray yourself. Jung said, integration is the key, bringing all parts of yourself into the light, even the ones you were told to hide. So here's how you start. Stop justifying behaviors that hurt you. You don't have to explain why something feels wrong. Your feelings are valid. Start affirming your worth every day. Write down what you need, what you want, what you will no longer accept. Choose your peace over your fear. It's not selfish to protect your spirit. It's necessary. If someone can't honor your boundaries, they don't deserve your presence. If someone makes you doubt your value, that's their shadow, not your truth. You are allowed to outgrow people who keep you small. So write this down. I will not shrink for anyone's comfort. If this resonates, if you're ready to reclaim your space, stay with me. Healing is a journey, not a destination. Subscribe, follow, and let's keep walking this path together. You deserve to be seen, heard, and loved, exactly as you are. Let's go deeper, beyond the obvious wounds, into the subtle ways unacceptable behavior seeps into your spirit. You might think the biggest threats are loud, obvious, impossible to miss. But Jung warns us, the real danger is what becomes normal, what blends in, what you stop noticing. It's the way someone's constant criticism starts to sound like just being honest. It's when you begin to expect disappointment and call it realism. It's the slow erosion of your boundaries, not by force but by habit. Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same kind of hurt, even when you change the people around you? Jung called this the power of the shadow, those unhealed parts of you that keep drawing you back to the same pain, the same lesson, again and again. You're not cursed. You're not broken. You're just repeating what you haven't healed. The people who push your limits, who ignore your no, who treat your needs as optional, they're not just random. They're mirrors reflecting the places inside you that still need your attention. Jung said, what you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. It's not fate. It's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. Let's look at another behavior, the subtle art of boundary erosion. Not the big, dramatic betrayals, but the small, daily trespasses. The friend who always asks for more than you can give. The colleague who dumps their work on your desk, knowing you won't say no. The family member who expects you to drop everything for them, every time. You tell yourself, it's just easier to say yes. But every yes that should have been a no is a tiny betrayal of yourself. Jung saw boundaries not as walls, but as sacred enclosures, a temenos, a protected space for your soul. Without boundaries, you lose your center. You become a collection of other people's demands, moods, and expectations. You stop knowing what you want because you're too busy meeting everyone else's needs. This is not kindness, it's self-abandonment, and it's unacceptable. Another behavior, the normalization of emotional labor. You become the caretaker, the fixer, the one who smooths things over. You absorb everyone's chaos, thinking it's your job to keep the peace. But Jung reminds us, peace that comes from self-erasure is not peace at all. It's surrender. You are not responsible for managing other people's feelings. You are not the emotional landfill for someone else's unresolved pain. Every time you carry what isn't yours, you lose a piece of yourself. It's time to return those burdens. And here's a truth that stings. Until you respect yourself, nobody else will. Self-respect is not arrogance. It's the quiet, steady promise you make to yourself. I will not abandon me. It's the willingness to stand alone, if that's what it takes to honor your truth. Jung says, emotional boundaries are not about shutting people out. They're about choosing what you allow in. Your life is your sacred ground. Not everyone gets access. So how do you reclaim your boundaries? First, stop waiting for permission to say no. You don't need anyone's approval to protect your peace. Second, start noticing the small trespasses, the jokes that sting, the favors that drain, the silences that punish. Name them. Don't let them blend into the background. Third, choose to honor your own needs. Write them down. Say them out loud. Practice holding your ground even when it feels uncomfortable. Remember, boundaries are not punishments. They are invitations to real relationship, where both people can grow, not just one. Write this down. My boundaries are my sanctuary. If you're ready to build that sanctuary, stay with me. Subscribe, follow, and let's keep learning how to make your life a place where only respect and truth are welcome. You deserve nothing less. Let's shift the lens. Why do some people keep finding themselves in the orbit of those who drain, confuse, or diminish them? Jung believed it's not random. He said, what you do not make conscious will rule your life, and you will call it fate. So ask yourself, why do you keep getting pulled back to the same kinds of hurt, the same patterns, even when you promise yourself, never again? It's not about weakness. It's about the shadow, the hidden parts of yourself you haven't faced yet. Sometimes, you're not just tolerating others' unacceptable behaviors. You're unconsciously inviting them in, because they mirror wounds you haven't healed. That's the real trap. You meet someone, and at first, it feels electric, exciting, almost like destiny. But soon, the old pain returns. You feel small, unseen, or desperate for their approval. Jung called this projection. You see in them what you can't or won't see in yourself. Maybe you grew up feeling invisible, so you're drawn to people who ignore your needs. Or you learned that love means chaos, so you mistake drama for passion. The truth? You're not addicted to the person, you're addicted to the pattern. And the pattern is ancient, buried in your unconscious, waiting for you to notice. Jung's solution wasn't to blame yourself, but to wake up. He called it individuation, the process of becoming whole by facing the shadow, integrating every part of yourself, especially the ones you've denied or disowned. When you do this, you stop searching for healing from those who keep hurting you. You stop tolerating what you used to accept. You realize love is not supposed to feel like survival. It's not supposed to be a test you keep failing. So how do you break the cycle? First, stop romanticizing intensity. Just because someone makes your heart race doesn't mean they're good for your soul. Intensity is not intimacy. Crisis is not chemistry. Second, start noticing your emotional triggers. What makes you feel small, desperate, or unworthy? Those are clues, signposts pointing to the wounds that need your attention, not someone else's validation. Third, choose to become unavailable to what drains you. You don't owe anyone your energy, your time, or your forgiveness if they keep crossing your boundaries. Jung said, when you conserve your energy, you break the projections others place upon you. Write this down. I am no longer available for what harms my spirit. If you're ready to break the old patterns, to heal the wounds that keep drawing you back to the same hurt, stay with me. Subscribe, follow, and let's keep walking this path of self-discovery together. You deserve a life where your peace is not up for negotiation. Let's talk about the masks we wear, the ones Jung called personas. Every day, you step out into the world and put on a face that says, I'm okay, I'm enough, I belong. But behind that mask, there's a part of you, the shadow, that holds everything you've been told is unacceptable, unlovable, or too much. You learned to hide these parts to fit in, to avoid rejection, to protect yourself from being an outcast. But here's the problem. The more you repress your shadow, the more power it has over you. And the more you hide, the more you attract people who sense your hidden wounds and use them against you. Have you noticed how some people seem to find your weak spots without even trying? They poke at your insecurities, exploit your fears, and make you question your worth. Jung warned, never tolerate those who weaponize your vulnerabilities, because when you let someone use your shadow against you, you become a puppet to their approval, their moods, their judgments. You start to believe that if you just wear the right mask, they'll finally accept you. But acceptance bought with self-betrayal is never real. It's a performance, and performances are exhausting. You end up living for applause that never comes. This is how you lose yourself, one compromise at a time. Jung said, the less the shadow is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. If you don't acknowledge your hidden parts, you'll keep attracting people who force you to confront them the hard way. So what does this look like in real life? It's the friend who shames you for being sensitive, when all you want is to be heard. It's the partner who mocks your dreams, then says you're too ambitious or not realistic. It's the colleague who takes credit for your work, knowing you won't speak up. These are not random acts. They're invitations to see where you've abandoned yourself. Jung believed that what we suppress, we project. If you deny your anger, you'll attract the angry. If you hide your need for love, you'll find those who withhold it. If you bury your shame, you'll meet people who trigger it. The world becomes a mirror for your shadow. So what can you do? First, stop pretending you're perfect. Perfection is a mask, and masks suffocate the soul. Second, start making friends with your shadow. Write down the parts of yourself you've been told to hide. The anger, the neediness, the fear, the wildness. Name them. Bring them into the light. Third, choose to set boundaries with those who try to use your shadow against you. You don't have to explain your wounds to everyone. You don't have to accept jokes at your expense or advice that feels like control. You can say, that's not okay with me. You can walk away from anyone who makes you feel like you have to earn their love by being less than who you are. Jung taught that true freedom comes from accepting your whole self, even the parts you wish you could change. When you do this, you become immune to those who try to manipulate you. You stop living for approval and start living for truth. You stop tolerating what hurts your soul and start honoring what heals it. Write this down. I accept my shadow, and I choose authenticity over approval. If you're ready to take off the mask and live as your whole self, stay with me. Subscribe, follow, and let's keep walking this path of self-acceptance together. You deserve to be seen. All of you, not just the parts that make others comfortable.